Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Dr. John Kotter on the line, and he is chairman and founder of Qatar International. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure.
All right, John. So you're an entrepreneur. You're an academic. Many people would call you a guru. I'm excited to get into your entrepreneurial ventures and also just your history, what you've done. I mean, you have an accomplished career, over 22 books, two fables written. I know you have a book that we'll be talking about quite extensively today that's just released, which is called Change: How Organizations Achieve Hard to Imagine Results in Uncertain and Volatile Times. So very on point, and I should say on theme and target for what's going on in the world right now. We have some volatile times. For context, for everybody that was watching this, we're recording this in March of 2022. So, John, let's see. Just to get us started, we'll start this episode the way that we start them all, with our Mission Matters Minute. So, John, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. John, what mission matters to you?
I am trying to do everything I can that's possible to help more organizations adapt with speed and intelligence and agility to this increasingly changing, volatile, uncertain world we're living in. If there's anything that's clear from the many research projects I've done over the last few decades, it's that rate of change has been going up, and institutions everywhere, public and private, are struggling with that, as are individuals. And when you get it right, the possibilities these days in terms of the opportunities to make an impact on life on Earth are unprecedentedly large. And when you get it wrong, it can be catastrophic. So I care a great deal about helping organizations through my firm, through my writing, through conversations like this, become more adaptive and agile and faster moving, because the payoff to the 7 billion of us who live on this planet can be significant. There's no question about this. And there's no question also that, as you well know, Adam, there are a lot of people among those 7 billion in rich and poor countries that don't have a quality of life that we want them to have and that they want themselves to have. And organizations performing well in this swirly environment can make a huge difference to people's lives. And that excites me. It has excited me for decades now. And as the world moves faster and faster, it continues to excite me more.
Oh, it is so exciting just to think about what's possible, like what's already taken place, but then what's possible going forward. So I will talk about Qatar International. I want to talk about maybe some of the specific work you're doing there too. But I think just to get us started, like I do want to take you back maybe some of those decades for a bit, if I may. Like when did this? I don't know if I would use the word obsession, fascination, like when did this calling, whatever words you would use, to help organizations and to kind of go down this route? Like, was it a moment in time, a progression? Like when did this become your thing?
Well, most obviously, it became consciously in my mind on a regular basis as a result of my doctoral thesis at Harvard quite a long time ago, in which
I told you I was going to take you back, John. It's okay. I want to hear the beginning. I want the story.
Well, here I was, maybe 22 or 23 years old.
Yeah, that's what I want.
And I chose to study with the extended work 20 different cities and their mayors during the late 1960s. the late 1960s being an unusually volatile time with a lot going on with the war and peace movements and social justice, et cetera. And what I learned from that study is that, first of all, the difference between the three mayors that all of our judges said did the best, and their cities did the best, they performed the best, and the three that did the worst, the difference between the best and the worst was far greater than I would have ever dreamed.
Wow.
Okay? If you could have taken the worst and moved them up just to the middle, it would have had a huge impact on millions and millions and millions of people and their lives. Number one. And number two, the three mayors who were judged to do the best were three very different personalities. One of which was one of the founders of Texas Instruments, which was an early high-tech company, one of the first consumer products from tech ever, a calculator, Texas Instruments.
Oh, I remember them, my algebra class. I was there.
Well, he was president for a while and then became the mayor of Dallas for 2 terms. Our 3 best mayors, what they were able to do, less through managing the bureaucracy than providing leadership to the city, was to, while others, mayors, were just trying to survive the tumultuous 1960s, these guys were looking for opportunities to do something to not just survive, but to make their cities truly thrive. And they did so using some classic leadership stuff. I now realize, I didn't realize that when I was 23 years old. And I was inspired by them, by the businessman, by the kind of traditional Irish politician in another city, and a small family businessman in Atlanta, where, among other things, when I was interviewing people, I got to meet and spend, gosh, an hour and a half at age 23 in the first row of the Ebenezer Baptist Church with Martin Luther King Sr.
Wow.
About the city, what that mayor had done, and of course about his son. So I walked away from that experience just pumped and wondering what could be done. Well, first of all, was this just an oddity of urban governance, or was it applicable more broadly than that? The answer is it's applicable everywhere. And 2, could some things actually be done to improve the performance of institutions in a faster moving world? And the answer to that is there's a lot that can be done. And it's very exciting. Anyway, it goes back to me at age 23, probably absorbing about 10% of what I was being told. But even that 10% was...
it's life-changing. Life-changing.
Yes.
And so now you, of course, you decide to kind of continue along this path, and you take, I believe you start the academic route. So tell me a little bit more about that and your career there.
Yes. So I become an assistant associate of full, a chaired professor at Harvard Business School, which I loved. I loved it. I loved my colleagues. And I consulted a day a week on the side. Why anybody would have hired me at age 25 as a consultant, I admit I'm not quite sure, but they did. And I can still remember some small businessmen, their companies are doing like 50 million or something like this. Being old enough to be my father or grandfather, actually wanting to know my opinion, which made me want to try harder to make sure my opinion was going to be useful to them. But at Harvard, we did at least a dozen, if not 15, multi-year research projects involving hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of organizations, mostly businesses, but
Mhm.
also nonprofits, universities, and governments. And we learn more and more, both about the challenges associated with the kind of context that has emerged here in the 21st century,
Mhm.
and what can be done in that context that really adds just almost unbelievable value to the broader community and to, as I said earlier, life on Earth.
Mm.
And 22 books. And then a decade ago, 12 years ago, decided I wanted to try to um, open up another vehicle for helping organizations beyond writing books, beyond teaching at Harvard, beyond doing communication things like this. And that was actually creating a management consulting firm, which we did,
Yeah.
that got named after me, Qatar International. And that has been a fascinating experience where it actually does research.
Mhm.
And what they now, it's not me anymore, it's
Mhm.
expanded to I think there are 42 pictures on our website of
It's
people.
amazing how that happens, huh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. An incredible group
Where'd
of
all these people come from? I had that moment.
right, right, right,
I know
right.
that doesn't sound right. That might not be the politically correct way to say it, but I've had that moment. I'm like, wait a minute.
No, I understand completely. Also, what am I doing to make sure that they get paid,
Absolutely.
and that their families are taken care of?
Absolutely.
But what they have been able to do over the last decade to extend uh, beyond any beyond what I could have guessed when we started the firm,
Mhm.
of helping companies do what I couldn't do as a single individual
Mhm.
is totally amazing.
Mm.
Uh, and
So,
I love it.
so when I look at your career and when I look at, the amount of people and just the experiences, and now that I have the story about where this all started, really interesting. But when I look at all this, like, what excites you about working with entrepreneurs? Like to be in the game, work with entrepreneurs this long, to wake up, to be excited about it. Like, what gets you going on that? Like, what's part of that part that's just that thing where you're like, man, love doing this.
Well, I think building something
Mm.
that can do more than I can do by myself
Mhm.
and could be around for any number of years, having an impact, even though I'm not involved,
Mhm.
is very exciting. And I love working for entrepreneurs as clients of our
Mhm.
firm. I just I can remember a couple of times at Harvard where the Young Presidents Organization, which is almost all entrepreneurs or small businessmen,
Yep.
asked me to speak. And after the first one, I remember commenting, coming home, and my wife Nancy asked me, "How did the day go?" And I said, "It was really fun." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, that's a good question. Why was it really fun?" And it was that group of people. There's something about people who want to create jobs, create innovative
Mhm.
products and services, build something
Mhm.
that those kinds of people I find just exciting to be around and to talk to and to try to help. So, and it's been that way for at least a couple of decades.
Amazing. So on our platform, of course, mission matters. I mean, mission is really a central theme that kind of we weave through all of our interviews and the platform. I mean, thousands of interviews, thousands of people, of course, that I asked the question in the beginning, what mission matters to you? But asking the question maybe a little bit more broadly. Like, what is mission meant maybe in your overall career? Like, how is that kind of woven itself through your career? I know that's a big question. I mean, you have an expanded career, but like, what is mission meant? Like, if you look at the body of work.
But I think I have been, although I would not may not have said it had you interviewed the 25-year-old version of me.
Yeah.
I think I have been, since my early 20s, a very mission-oriented
Mhm.
person. And that is to say that the work that I've done
Mhm.
is emotionally compelling to me.
Mhm.
And I think it has real purpose for me. And hence, it makes my work not seem like work. People
Mhm.
often, for decades, have said, "What is your work?" And I say, "Well, I don't work." You know, no, I can remember. Uh,
That threw them off. That throws them off.
well, you clearly, clearly,
They're
clearly.
like, "What?"
The time I met Spencer Johnson, who wrote, among other things, "Who Moved My Cheese,"
Mhm.
and sold a zillion copies with that,
Yes, he
and
did.
impacted a lot of lives.
I bought at least 3 copies.
Okay, there you go. I met him in Chicago. He came to see me give a speech,
Mhm.
and we ended up walking up and down Lake Michigan. And he asked me, "What kind of work do you do at Harvard?" And I remember saying to him, "I don't work at Harvard." He looked at me and said, "You, you don't?
Mhm.
Are you at MIT?" And I said, "No, I've got a few degrees from MIT, but I don't. I have fun at Harvard."
Mhm.
And I remember him just stopping. We're walking, right? And he goes, "I like that. I
Mhm.
like that." And I said, "Would you like to come and have fun with us?" And I actually got him a part-time appointment for a couple of years, in which he helped us generate kind of innovative and new ways to think and to communicate ideas
Mhm.
with his deep understanding of telling stories.
That's great. And I guess taking this question from another angle, because on my end, I get to ask this question and I get to delve into mission and the thought process of mission for with the entrepreneurs that I interview. So that's quite a few, but it's more of a limited engagement, right? Where we do we have some, obviously, some of these people, some of these individuals I've built a relationship with afterwards. But for yourself, but I'm not necessarily working on their business or consulting or things like that, nor am I an academic on that end. So I'd be interested to kind of hear your thought process on how you've seen, maybe, and not like a specific entrepreneur or anything like that, but the theme of mission, like how you've seen that maybe weave into or even work through the lives of maybe some of the entrepreneurs you've either consulted with or that have come through your doors at Harvard or otherwise. Like, what is mission is, if there is, by the way, there may not be, if there is some type of common theme or thing that you see
Yep.
that often comes up.
Where it all comes together is the most impactful and successful entrepreneurs that I have had
Mhm.
the opportunity to get to know
Mhm.
over the decades. Were also pretty darn remarkable
Yeah.
at leadership,
They are, aren't they?
not just management. As a matter of fact, some of them were not very good managers, but they
Yeah.
were smart enough to A, know that, and to B, to make sure that the number two or number three person in the firm was
Mhm.
a superb manager and
Mhm.
could work as a team. And once you go that leadership route as opposed to the management route, that's where you bump into words like mission
Mhm.
and purpose and vision. Because the more that I've studied great leaders historically over the
Mhm.
centuries, all of the ones that, from the best information we have today, did something that really mattered
Mhm.
and that improved the quality of a country or a company, uh,
Mhm.
did so by providing leadership which included
Mhm.
a deep sense of purpose,
Mhm.
a real sense of mission, and a capacity to communicate that in a way that would
Mhm.
mobilize other people, energize other people, and
Mhm.
make extraordinary things happen. So, leaders both build organizations in the first place, i.e. entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
but they also take existing mature organizations and change them in ways that take advantage of the opportunities that are coming around their context and avoid the threats. And as those opportunities and threats have grown over the past 5 decades of my career in this rapidly changing world, leadership has become a more important element of what makes a successful CEO. And the whole term mission and vision and purpose have become more important discussion points in understanding them and in trying to beat them and to run a great enterprise today.
Hmm.
So I would say mission has always mattered, but it
Hmm.
matters more today because leadership matters more in the kind of context we're operating.
So taking like if you were talking to that to that 20 some year old, going back and you were to give him maybe a couple of tips or words of advice on his journey, what kind of things would you tell him?
I would tell him that listen to himself,
Mm.
that your instincts are pretty good. They've gotten you from a very middle class existence
Mhm.
into 2 degrees, technical degrees from MIT and one from Harvard. They've gotten you a great job with a great group of colleagues here at Harvard. Um, and Therefore, don't get caught up in the political noise that's a part of all organizations
Mhm.
with the you have to do this and you shouldn't do that. And you just figure out what you can do that will add value to your employer, in my case, Harvard Business School,
Mhm.
and that excites you deeply, and go with it. And if that is nobody else is doing that, don't worry about it. It's going to work itself out. So have more self-confidence in your own gut instinct and go with it. Not because that's necessarily always the best advice, but there's enough data from your first 23 or 24 years on Earth that it is good advice for you. That's what I
Mm.
tell myself.
Fantastic. All right. So, great answer. I'm inspired. I'm fired up. What are we doing, John? so, so now I get to say at the end of the day, what'd you do today? I had fun too. Why I got to talk to John and we went through now what I would tell that 22-year-old Adam, I'm like, I don't know, but back to yourself. And also I want to switch gears here a bit and I do want to spend some time on the book. So the name of the book is called Change. I guess just to start out on the book side of things, like what is 22 books? You've written quite a bit. I mean, why this book? Why now?
Right. This book came out of a project that started 5 years ago at the consulting firm at Qatar International. A bunch of us in our whiteboard room in our Cambridge, Massachusetts office, kicking around some ideas about what we were learning from brain science, about human nature, and why that was important to running and leading organizations. And that led to a study group within the firm that both did research on our own clients
Mhm.
and more thinking through what the brain science people were saying about human nature. And what we concluded most fundamentally is that we had come to the point now where we knew enough that you could start to talk about an emerging science of change, not
Mhm.
just my opinion, your opinion, somebody else's opinion,
Mhm.
that there's actually a science here that's rooted in human nature and organizational nature, if you will. And that if you understood that science, you could see why people struggle with change
Mhm.
and why sometimes they thrive and accomplish things that are hard to believe. And then the book breaks that down into all of the major ways that firms today go about trying to adapt, from developing a new strategy and executing it, to restructuring, to digital transformation, to M&A and M&A integration, to cultural change, to adopting some form of scaled agile as a way of running the business, and tell stories from our own client list of how this can be done in a way that just so far exceeds the norm today, as well as some failure stories that we got from the press and from my prior research. So you've got pairs all the way through. And it's very practical, it's very hands-on, and no matter whether you're dealing with a strategy issue, a digital issue, an M&A issue, a cultural issue, anything that involves change, it gives you a framework and the science behind the framework of how you can make it happen better, faster, smarter, and to everybody's advantage.
Now, I know that for anybody watching this, like sometimes when you're going, especially if you've written a book, sometimes when you go down the path of writing a book, you're at that initial whiteboard, like where you start and where you think you're going to end, or sometimes going to be completely different areas, and new things that you discover during the book writing process, or during, in your case, the data, right? Accumulating the data. Was there a surprise or like a curveball or just something that came out of when you got to this end of the project where you're like, it could be an outcome, it could be anything. Was there something that was like, oh wow, I didn't expect that, like that? Wow, just like in the beginning, like taking you back to that early 20s, John, when you got the data of the three mayors, and you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that big of a difference. Was there anything that just surprised you at the end of this book writing process?
Well, one thing that clarified, and it was a surprise, and that also influenced the structure of the book and how we wrote about everything, which we could not have articulated at the beginning of the process, was the what and the how of change. People focus on the what to the detriment of the how. That is to say, they focus on, my problem is strategy, my problem is digital, my problem is culture, not my problem is change, my problem is people. I just had a guy, a CEO of what does he run, 2 billion maybe, talked to me 3 weeks ago, and he said, before we started working with you, I would have told you that our digital initiatives, the challenge there was 70% technical and 30% people. He said, I've worked with you for a year now, and one of the things we've learned is I had it backwards. It's 70% people, 30% technical.
Wow.
And once you get that insight, it takes you to a second insight, which is the fundamental problems you run into these days with strategy execution, with M&A, with cultural change, with restructuring, with anything that involves change. People put those in different buckets. This is a strategy issue. This is a digital issue. This is a cultural issue. And they treat them separately, not recognizing that the fundamental challenge they have in each of their cases is on the how side, which is how you make change happen, which relates to people and everything we write about in that book. Very often I've discovered that I can introduce two CEOs, one of whom is conceptualizing that his big challenge is executing a strategy, and the other, which is conceptualizing his problem, is completely differently. It's a restructuring issue. It's a cultural issue. And yet, if one of them has done a good job, he has or she has a great deal to teach the other because
Mm.
it's the same fundamental problem they're dealing with, which is making change happen faster, smarter, more agilely to take advantage of the opportunities and duck the threats around us today.
This is one of my favorite parts about books and writing books is the process. Like, you never like that end when you're done with it and you understand that you got something new or clarified, as you to use your words, you got clarification on a particular topic. Like, it's amazing. To me, that's the beauty of creating something new and of even going through that difficult process of getting a book together. What is so when a reader picks up this book, obviously they're going to go through, maybe stories, case studies, things like that. What are some of the tools or takeaways that you hope somebody kind of walks away with? I know that'd be different for every person, but what are some things that
Oh,
you hope they
sure.
walk away with?
No, there are dozens and dozens of takeaways. But I think the biggest one that becomes clear as you read enough of these stories
Mhm.
is the most fundamental driver of creating organizations that can adapt faster, smarter to
Mhm.
this volatile, changing world is more leadership for more people.
Mhm.
The typical CEO and exec that I deal with even today thinks of leadership in very narrow terms, a small number of people that sit on top of a hierarchy. And indeed,
Mhm.
it's hard to find a business these days of any size in which, if you're not getting pretty darn good leadership from a
Mhm.
small number of people at the top of a hierarchy, that they can be doing well. But the key to actually producing the change, smart enough, fast enough, et cetera, is tapping into a much broader base of people and allowing them in an aligned way to provide initiative, proactive, and to lead. More leadership from more people.
Mhm.
It's important in business. It's increasingly important in government. It's important everywhere.
So, switching focus slightly, I know you've mentioned some of the things and maybe some of the types of companies you've worked with at Qatar International, but I want to go a little bit deeper. So, tell us exactly what Qatar International offers.
Well, we help guide, educate, inspire our clients to learn how to get more people providing the kind of leadership that can drive adaptive behavior on the part of the firm, whether it's in executing strategies or putting in new digital tools or changing culture or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, Teams of 4 or 5 people typically working for 6 months, 2, 3 years. I just got a email, um,
Mhm.
last week from the former CEO. He's just retired of one of our clients, and he and one of his colleagues have written a book about their adventure, in which apparently we play a prominent role.
Mhm.
But it's a beautiful case of
Mhm.
when we met them, they had a strategy process in place in
Mhm.
which they'd identified lots of opportunities, but they
Mhm.
had been going for years, 3 or 4 years, in which they were making very little progress
Mhm.
at being able to turn that into revenue growth, to turn that into better products and services, to turn that into stock price growth. And working with our team, they learned a whole new way of thinking about what the problem was, the change problem, the leadership problem. And they started taking new, and I can remember talking about more leadership for more people that kind of mobilizes the troops to do great things.
Yeah.
I visited their headquarters once, and I can still remember being picked up at the hotel with a couple of my colleagues,
Mhm.
going over there, getting out of the the car at their corporate headquarters, and there was a group of 20 or 30 of their employees out front with signs saying welcome and cheering. And
Yeah.
of course, I'm wondering who's coming,
You're looking behind you. Is there another car?
right. And then finally it's dawning on me that no, this is for us. And we go inside, and the lobby has two levels, a mezzanine level and a regular. And there must have been 75 people in that lobby. Again, cheering with signs, etc. All well. And it was their way, I think, of signaling to us, we've got it. We really have picked up this. We can mobilize large numbers of people in our firm in a common cause, mission driven, to achieve this strategic opportunity that we've seen for years now and not been able to. And they, over a 2-year period, changed the way they operated, learned enormously. The CEO did a fantastic job, and their stock price, I'm sure, at least doubled. The revenues went up unprecedented amount, and just as importantly, what they were able to offer their clientele, their customers, it just became better and better and better, making a big difference in a lot of people's lives. Great fun, and that's what I love.
In terms of great story, in terms of like types of companies you work with, are there certain industries or size of company, or like give us a feel for, like, because at the end of this, we're of course going to put the information for Qatar International in the show notes and all that good stuff, and I just want to make sure that the right types of individuals do connect and follow up. So who typically gets the most value out of working with you and your team?
If I were to say size is relevant, people that are firms that are under, say, 200 or 300 million, we don't yet. We're going to in the near term, but we don't yet have a good solution for that. And if they get to be huge, Doug, the guy that runs Walmart, who's an extraordinary man, by the way, he's too big. we couldn't begin to help him. So there's something around maybe 300 million to 30 billion that's the size that we can deal with. And industries, we are dealing a lot with industries that have traditionally been highly regulated or static for whatever reason, technology or government regs, and that now are being really buffeted by these global forces. But we've dealt with high tech and low tech, retail and B2B, everything. As it turns out, and that's part of the point of this new book, human nature is human nature. Organizations are organizations, and it applies across industries and across countries, the basic ideas at least.
Yeah, it's great. So, John, I just have to say, first off, it's been great having you on the show to learn more about your background, to learn more, of course, about the book Change and Kotter International. I just have to ask, a lot going on with you. I mean, what's next? I mean, what's next for you? The book promo, Kotter International. What's next?
Well, one big thing that's next for us is the horrid COVID plague that has been hanging over us for a few years has zoomified, if you will, the world. And that offers an opportunity for us to do something that we haven't been able to do before. It offers an opportunity for us to package educational offerings that can be offered across virtual environments like this, where people don't have to get on planes and come to Boston, and with all of the expense and the inconvenience of that. It can do it from their office or their home and learn a great deal about the science of change and about leadership today that's needed from not just their boss's boss, but from them. And we're in the process of building out that business right now. So that's going to be very exciting. One thing that I'm particularly interested in also is the application of this work to how we lead our lives. I've got a draft of a book called The Life You Lead, and it's playing off of, it's a play on words because most people don't lead their lives. They cope with the reality. They accept what's given to them. At best, they manage their affairs well, all of which is different from leadership. And I walk through that, and one of the chapters in that book is on finding your right mission.
That's great. I'm in for that. You know, you already know the name of our platform and what we do. So I'm in. You're speaking my language here, John, but you've been speaking my language here all day. I mean, it's really just been really a pleasure to get to know you and your work, and to just continue building and to continue to follow Qatar International in general and to see what your team's doing and their work. I know they put in a lot of work on the book as well and bringing together the data and all that good stuff for the book Change. So big shout out to the team out there that's doing what they do at Kotter International.
Thank you.
So if somebody wants to follow up and connect with your team, I mean, what's the best way for them to do that?
Just go into your browser and put in Kotter. Ignore the pictures of John Travolta. If any come up, and all the rest will be about me and the firm. It's very easy to get in touch with us. And there's lots of free material on that and on YouTube from people, from not only our people, but other people, educating on what they've done, how they've used this, my work, and how it's helped them. So just
Wonderful.
Kotter YouTube or your browser, and it'll be obvious where the company is. And you can get a note directly to me through that.
Wonderful. And we'll pull all the links and all that good stuff. So we'll have all that in the show notes so that my audience can just head right on over and check you out. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time engaging with Mission Matters or the platform or listening to us or watching us, just to let you know, we're all about bringing on mission-based business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, experts, really, and having them share their mission, why they do what they do, like what gets them fired up to go out there into the world and to make a difference. If that's the type of content that you're into, or if that sounds exciting to you, we welcome you to hit that subscribe button because we have many more mission-based individuals coming up for you next, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And John, really, it has been a pleasure. Thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Adam.